Hello and welcome to another edition of Fourth and Goal. I am Jake Adams here along with Shay once again. We're here to break down everything going on in the Mid-Penn Conference this week, a little bit of last week, talk about some of the game's biggest names. We got an interview up today again as well, who you'll hear from a little bit later, and maybe have a few laughs along the way like always. Andy, it's week one of conference play. It's one of the best times of the football season because we start to see where things really get down and dirty here. How are you doing? Are you excited?
Good. Yeah, it's always fun when you transition over into conference play. You have a little bit of an idea of what's going on. Um, First, we just want to say thunderstorm, stay away. Thank you. You have a little bit of an idea of what's going on, but you really start to learn about the nitty gritty of each one of the divisions by sort of what's these next 2 to 3 weeks will tell you a little bit more about who's a player and who's not a player.
Yeah. And we don't have too long to wait. There's some really like good matchups this first week that are gonna
There
say
are.
like maybe it's not gonna give us the full picture of each division, but it's definitely gonna give us, something to look at right away. We've got some like it's there aren't a lot of like blowout games that you look at right here. There are definitely some that you could see going to, 4 or 5 point win, going down to the wire. We had a couple of those last week with East Penn, who will have a player on in a little bit from the Panthers where they had a win like that last week. But I think there's a couple games on the slate that they're going to be tight, and I think that's really going to paint a good picture for us going forward. So let's dive in on that. We've got
Sure.
one topic kind of per division here. We'll start with the Commonwealth with the big boys here. There's no clear cut favorite right now, but again, we'll start to get a little bit more clarity in the next few weeks. This is wide open, correct? Do you see this going to, week 10, or do you see this kind of being decided maybe a couple weeks earlier than that?
I think it could. I think it could go. I think it could play a long game because I think there's three teams in it now, and all three of them have already lost non-conference games. Right? It's State College, it's Harrisburg, and I'm going to put Central Dauphin back in. Central Dauphin can. They just took Coatesville out behind the woodshed.
Hmm.
Coatesville was state ranked coming into Landers Field last Friday, and Coatesville kind of had no, not kind of, they had no say in the outcome of that game. I mean,
Yeah.
CD just took it to them, and they made Coatesville sort of, and this is an indictment on Coatesville. They look like Tarzan and played like Jane. And that isn't because they stink, it's because that's what CD did to them. So
Yeah.
you have to put them in. I mean, Manheim Township took the Cougars right out behind the woodshed Saturday morning down in Neffsville. And State College lost to Downingtown East narrowly in a game they kind of hit the snooze button on and got behind big early and then
Hmm.
played catch up and wake up, but it wasn't enough. So all three teams have lost. So I have no idea which one of those three teams is sort of ahead of the other, and that's why I think it's an up for grabs. Any one of those three teams. I think it's one of those three teams though for sure. I think once you get below that, CDs, Cumberland Valley struggling to score points.
Yeah.
CDs just doesn't have enough known
They got
players.
blown out last week too.
Yeah, and they got whaled last week. You've got Altoona, Chambersburg, Carlisle. I don't think any of those teams have a say in this. I think it's those three teams in the Commonwealth.
I think if we were like ranking top five surprise teams so far, I think Central Dolphins very clearly in that top five, just because like we all knew they were going to be better. They had to be better compared to last year. It was such a rebuilding year last year, but we didn't quite know how much. And then that coach film was just like, oh, that much. They're that much better than they were a year ago, and that's
Yeah,
impressive.
they made a jump too from in week one when they got beat by Central York. I don't
Yeah.
think you saw as big a jump. And usually you say from week one to week two is when units make a big jump. Look, CD's defense got run rickshot over. Now he's an FBS back going to Pitt, and he's really good. And they got run over by him, and they still gave up too many points probably against Wilson and edged that game out. Gutsy call, by the way. But that
Yeah.
defense took a step forward last week. You could clearly see it that they literally sucked the life out of Coachville's offense last week. And their offense, we knew they were going to be improved simply because they had their quarterback back, right? They lost
Hmm.
him for 2/3 of last year with an injury. But yeah, CD would definitely be a top five surprise team overall. You're 100% right on that one.
I'll go down one notch to the Keystone. It's McDevitt. We can just
Yeah.
pencil this one. We could have penciled this one in 6 months ago. We could have penciled it in 6 weeks ago. But beyond that, is there a team or two that you think is going to pull away here pretty soon for number two? Is there a team or two that could be, a good postseason team, in 7 weeks and in 2 months here, just we're going to ignore McDevitt there and not, credit to them for us having to do that to
Yeah,
them.
you're correct. It's McDevitt, and they're playing for second, right? Like it's not even close. And yeah, I think there's two teams I think they're going to play this week. It's Cedar Cliff and Hershey. Hershey's 3-0.
Yeah.
And, you know, Hershey's got a little something cooking. They have some holes and issues defensively that you can clearly see and find. That's not hard to see. But that offensive line and that running back, they are a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I think the Cedar Cliff and Hershey game is a toss up. I mean, I can see how they're both going to want to do the same thing. Cedar Cliff's going to want to own the line of scrimmage and run the ball and sort of control the tempo. Hello, that's what Hershey's going to want to do. So it's going to be that kind of collision. And in those games, the defense that sort of shows up and plays a little above its pay grade usually ends up winning the game. So
Yeah.
I think you're going to find out which one of those teams could possibly be built for a playoff to be a playoff team and be competitive and play for second place in the Keystone. That's where I'm looking at it.
This seems to be the running theme right now of this particular episode, but the Colonial Division. Do you have any idea who's going to win that division right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me it's the biggest box of chocolates in that it literally doesn't have a favorite. East Penn kind of looks like it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're gonna have Keith coming up, but East Penn tends, and he's probably not afraid. They tend to lose a game they shouldn't, right? And it tends to be a big division game sometimes, and they have to avoid that. They have more offensive firepower than they've had in a while, and that is clear with him running the quarterback position, him being a dual threat, and clearly has no problem running the ball. But he also has some gifted athletic playmakers on the outside that he can go to. So, I mean, I think Shippensburg's having problems scoring points.
Yeah.
Northern's the same way. The Polar Bears can't score. Despite their ability to run the ball, they just simply are having trouble scoring points. Greencastle's kind of rebuilding, but they're sort of making some hay by being who they are. So I don't know. I will say if you told me pick a team that's favored to win the Colonial right now, I'd be like, I'm not picking anybody to be the favorite. Because I could see a team losing at least one and possibly being a couple teams or maybe a three-way tie with two losses, unless somebody starts to separate themselves. And I don't think we'll know that for 2 or 3 weeks.
I think I'll counter and say I think like East Pennsboro's made a point right now of like if they can come out of the gate strong here against Gettysburg this week, we're gonna have to start taking that seriously of like, okay, maybe they're the front runner. And you're right, they do have a tendency to kind of lay an egg in prior years, but every team is a new team, so maybe this will be different for them. But that's beyond that, the Colonial kind of looks like from top to bottom. Is there a I don't want to say deep in like the traditional sense, but is there a deeper division right now? I'm not entirely sure because every other division you could clearly see a team that's like going to risk going 1-9, 2-8 or something like that. I don't ever want to say 0-10 in high school football, but this division, outside of Waynesboro, really,
I could put 4 or 5 teams in the same box right now.
Yeah.
I could. You could put, and I think that has to play out. Gettysburg, okay, yeah, they lost a lot to graduation, but they also have the best player in the conference or in the division. Excuse me. Brady Heiser's the best player in the division. I don't think that's even up for argument. That guy's the best player, and he makes those around him better. He will drag that team along. Not that they're a bunch of mutts, but he will make them better. They aren't the sure player that you knew they were last year, but I think they're going to have a say in it because they got the best player in the field almost every week. So I think East Pennsboro has more assets than most, but can they continue to employ them and use them to their advantage? Then that makes them harder to beat. I don't know.
we got about a minute or so here until we're joined by our guest. So let's real quick. We already talked a lot about the Capital Division last week, so I don't think we need to really kind of rehash
Nope.
as much. But I'm looking through the notes that you have for pregame for pre-show for us. You've got 4 question mark here. We've got West Perry, Trinity, and Steel High were the clear number, 3 top dogs. But now you're saying 4. Who's the 4th?
Am I going to throw Camp Hill out just by cause without knowing? I'm not willing to do that. I mean, I know what Trinity, West Perry, and Steel High I'll bring to the table, but Camp Hill's certainly shown itself as a willing, can they compete at that level with them? I'm not going to say no right now because I just don't, I'm not sure, but we know who the big 3 are, but I'm going to put Camp Hill in there.
Gotcha. All right, last one. We've got the Liberty Division. We'll make sure we spend some time a little bit more on them going forward here, but we're running up against the clock. Any thought on that division?
I still think it's Lime Mountains, but I think I want to see what Susquehanna has to say about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that's my curiosity. I'm not sure it's Juniata that is going to challenge him, but I'm very, very curious because Susquehanna isn't afraid to take their chances.
Yeah, Susquehanna has been pretty balanced. I mean, Halifax right now has the better 1-loss record and has scored more points than anyone else in the division. But
be careful.
Exactly.
Be careful.
So we'll see how this kind of shakes out. But yep, I think you're right on that one. All right, today we've got ourselves another guest, Keith Oates, quarterback, middle linebacker, kind of do everything leader of East Pennsboro Panthers, a 3-0 East Pennsboro Panthers. Keith has thrown for nearly 600 yards, 4 touchdowns so far this season through 3 games. They're about to take on Gettysburg in the Panthers' 1,000th career program game at home. As well as that, he's also run for nearly 100 yards, has 6 more rushing touchdowns, and he leads the team with 27 tackles, 18 of them solo. You don't see that too often from a quarterback these days. So Keith, welcome to the show today. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're ready for this week. Thanks for taking some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for it. So,
all right, Keith, I'm going to ask the first question. First of all, congratulations. That was a great win over Milton Hershey. Crazy game. It was a toss-up all the way. The late comeback by you guys was impressive. I wanted to ask you from your perspective, when you chase a game like that the entire way, and I think you guys fell behind 14-0 fairly early. I think you got in a 2-score hole early. You chased and you chased. You tied it up once at 21. Then they took the lead back, and then you chased and chased. What is the most difficult part of chasing a game where everything else is even sort of on the field? Those are 2 evenly matched teams. You know that, and I know that. What's the most difficult aspect from a player's perspective of chasing a game that long and that hard?
I feel that it was the physical exhaustion that we faced throughout that game. A lot of us are 2-way players at East Penn, so we start a lot of guys on both sides of the ball. And I know, especially at halftime, we were all sort of feeling the wear of the game pretty strong. And so definitely the physical aspect sort of kicks in. Chasing.
So it had taken until like the 48th minute there for you guys to decide the outcome of this one. You were the one who got the game-winning touchdown. I think it was about 13 yards out. Can you break down a little bit what the play call was there, what you saw on the field? Did it go according to script? Did you have to kind of go off script on that? Just kind of take us through, from beginning to end, what it was like.
That was the play that we called going in there was just a quarterback keep to the left, and I found a hole. My line did a great job blocking on it. My fullback Paul Sanderson had a great block in the hole to seal the inside linebacker, and I just took it. And then I saw the safety who I didn't think was going to be able to stop me, and I just lowered my shoulder into the end zone.
Hey, you guys have Keith. You guys have 2 wide receiver ones, right? You have Trey Good and Brecken Swope. They're both equally the same. You can throw them in either flat and they break tackles, and you can also run them deep. And they're your 2 go-to guys. Generally, you have a wide receiver one, your sort of go-to guy, and then you have a guy you like to, where the coverage isn't shading you much go-to. But clearly in your offense, it is 2 guys that are playing elite wide receiver one. So what kind of things have you seen this year where having 2 guys like that puts a little bit of different kind of pressure on a defense? And what does that look like as a quarterback?
Well, they're both phenomenal athletes, obviously, as you said, which makes it easier on me. And for defenses, like them having to cover them, both on a play is extremely hard because I know both of them, like they're both are very quick, strong, agile players, and so like the defense like it's hard for them to be able to cover both of them, especially when they're both on one side of the field with how our offense is set up. So I find that the defense isn't always able to cover both of them on every play. So one of them
Yeah,
just
and I will. They don't keep this in high school, but they both are big yards after catch guys. I just wanted to put that out there that
yeah, definitely.
you throw a lot of 3 and 5 yard passes to them and just say, "Go ahead, guys, go ahead and do your thing," and that's by design, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Get the ball in their playmakers' hands and let them go to work.
Keith, looking ahead a little bit, this week you guys have Gettysburg, 1000th game of the program, which I mentioned earlier. For you, whether it's kind of growing up watching the team or as a player, what's your favorite East Penn memory?
Um, 2 years ago, well, playing 2 years ago, we were at Milton Hershey again, and we ran a hitch and go to Brecken and down the sideline. Definitely, like it was sort of a similar situation. Under 2 minutes left in the game, we're down a score, and I hit a pass down the sideline to my receiver, and we went go ahead touchdown 2 plays later, and won the game. So that was probably my favorite memory as a like playing for East Pennsboro.
You got a penchant for all these game winners, huh?
Well, I seem to do it against Milton Hershey the most. So.
Big fan of Henry Hershey Stadium. I will just say. So I'm going to ask you, quarterback. Is that your secondary position? Or your primary position?
Um, Growing up, I was definitely more of a quarterback, I would say.
Okay.
Coaches were always iffy playing me at linebacker because I was the quarterback through youth league and they didn't want me getting hurt playing defense. But then I'd say throughout high school, I've definitely started leaning more towards defense.
So
I've grown
go ahead.
my linebacker coach, Coach Spriggs has definitely helped with that and helped molded me into a better linebacker. So I owe a lot of that to him and a lot of thanks to him.
So before I ask you the obvious question, I want to know now that you talk about you have to work at that position, right? Yep. You play quarterback longer, you're working at linebacker in high school. What's your practice time? What is it like 70-30 quarterback linebacker? Is it 80-20, 50-50? How does that look for you week to week? Because you're the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. It's 50-50. I usually go with what the team
Okay.
does. So our coach usually does a pretty good job of keeping us on schedule between defensive indie to defensive team on the offensive indie, and then 7-on-7 and inside run and stuff, the offensive team.
So I'm going to ask the obvious question. You only get one side of the ball. You can't go both ways. Coach says you can choose one, quarterback or middle linebacker. What are you playing? Only one.
Mm-hmm. Probably a middle linebacker.
Yes. I love it.
All right. All
Love
right.
contact, love hitting.
You can see that on that game-winning run there last week too. Like you said, lowering your shoulder a little bit. You enjoy dishing out some punishment. Kind of transitioning from that, you were talking about your power there and your ability to play multiple ways. If there was a skill that any one of your teammates has, one skill, one player, it could be they're vertical, it could be speed, could be power, IQ, whatever it is. If there was one skill from someone on your team that you could steal and take for yourself, what would it be? And from who?
I would steal my fellow middle linebacker and also guard Josh Angela's motor. I don't know what it is, but he never gets tired. And
All right.
he is a 6 foot, 250-pound guy going both ways. And he is never tired and he's always flying around the field making plays everywhere. So definitely his motor.
Gotcha.
Hey, Keith, one more question I want to ask you before we put you on a little hot seat and let you go. And thanks so much for joining us this week. And good luck to you guys against Gettysburg.
Thank you.
What has surprised you during this 3-0 start about the Panthers? I know it's kind of a weird question, but there's always something that surprises you. And what is it about this team that surprised you so far?
Well, last year, just the difference in our offense this year has been tremendous, in my opinion. Like we're more explosive, we're higher scoring, so that part's been fun to see. I mean, like we made some changes this offseason, so I mean, I was kind of expecting more of an offensive output, but I wasn't expecting it to be by just much of a drastic change. So
excellent. Anything else, Jake, before I put Keith on the hot seat?
The only question I really had left was we're now in division play and the Colonial seems pretty wide open here. You guys have made an early claim for maybe being one of the favorites or at least, having a say in what the final outcome is going to be. Is there a matchup, whether it's Gettysburg this week or one of the ones coming up, that you yourself are most looking forward to this year?
Not one in particular, I would say. Maybe getting that Waynesboro win back or that Northern win from last year in the homecoming game, but
The Waynesboro one. I knew that was going
that,
to stick with you guys. That was
that
a bad
one
loss. That's a
that
bad
one
loss.
hurt us last year, but
Yeah, that did.
just
That's
I
a
would just
good
say going
call.
1-0 each week. Going 1-0 each week and just focusing on the opponent that we have that week is the most important thing.
Yeah, and the
Really
Colonial
good
hasn't
answer.
shaken itself. Yeah, the Colonial hasn't shaken itself out, Jake. It could be crazy because it looks like there's not really a favorite or two. There looks like there's one or two that might be emerging, but it's going to be crazy. So, all right, Keith, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. These are short answers. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Beach house or lake house? Which one?
Beach.
A streaming series that you're currently watching or something that you watched recently?
Ooh, something I've watched recently.
What is it?
I don't really spend much time watching stuff. So
Cool. Give me a team in the Mid-Penn Conference whose uniform combinations catches your eye as being pretty cool.
Cumberland Valley.
Why Cumberland Valley? I'm curious now. Is it
I like the way that their helmets match especially their white uniforms.
Yeah, the white ones are
I like
sweet.
the red on red and I like the white on the white and I like the helmets with it.
Yeah, that's a good call. I like that one too. I like their white on white. All right, last one. Sheets. You can go in as much detail as you like. What is your go-to order when you go to Sheets?
I sometimes switch this up. Definitely I gotta grab a chocolate milk. Chocolate milk's my go-to drink there. The chocolate milk's the best around, in my opinion. And then made to order, I usually either get 2 hot dogs when I'm kind of feeling cheap, or I get a chicken sandwich. And maybe some mac and cheese bites.
There you go. The chocolate milk tops the list.
Yep.
Hot dogs and mac and cheese bites. What do you put on your dogs? Chili?
Mustard, ketchup, and chili.
Yes, you gotta have the Sheets chili. It's been legendary for 40 years. I'm just gonna say that. I know that from 40 years of Sheets experience.
I think we've learned that Keith is Andy's new favorite player of the season so far, just for that answer, and also his ability to play multiple positions on both sides of the ball physically. So, Keith, thanks for taking the time with us today. Congrats so far on the 3-0 start. Good luck the rest of the season. We really appreciate you being on with us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the time. So,
well, that was Keith Oates with us today. We thank him for his time once again. Andy, just coming off of that here, that's a matchup here. East Pennsboro, Gettysburg. We talked about a little bit too in the opener that could be an intriguing game to watch here. Is there a matchup within that matchup that you're most interested in seeing if you were to be there?
It's the quarterbacks, right? It's the two quarterbacks. It's Keith and Brady Eisner.
And quite literally, because Keith will face Brady on defense.
Yeah, it will be, and Brady will face Keith on defense. So
that's true. That's true. You're right.
Brady goes both ways. So Brady, they're going to be going head to head all day, and they're going to be the two players that'll impact the game greatest. Neither defense has got much cooking, if you know what I mean. Like, they're not bad defenses, but they're certainly not good. So both teams are going to be able to get some. It's just a matter of which quarterback has the bigger night is going to determine the outcome of this game.
Yeah.
East Pennsboro has more around Keith than Gettysburg has around Brady. That's the big advantage. That's the game inside the game. There's your matchup advantage.
Yeah. 100%. Second to last question here before we go. You do making the grades every week after your game coverage, breaking down position groups and how they did in that particular matchup. Going into division play here, we've got just a small sample, but it's a sample nonetheless. Are there 2 or 3 teams or players or position groups that you've seen so far that would get an A+ grade from you?
Trinity special teams are really good. They blocked 2 punts for touchdowns against Wyomissing, and Mike Motti coaches them, former Penn State player. He's pretty good at coaching. And I think they have a decided advantage. I think they could block a punt every week if they executed it properly. He knows how to figure out how to make that a matchup. I think that's a huge advantage for Trinity. Across thinking about other ones, I'd give an A plus so far to I'd probably give an A plus to Hershey's offensive line. I'd give an A plus to McDevitt's quarterback.
Everything.
Yeah, and I don't know about the receivers as a whole because after Rico, they don't catch the ball as much as they should. So it's looking at a position group, but I mean, Stone has been fantastic. And, Chase Reagan's probably been their best two-way player. So, but I don't know that you could find that in an A plus. And that's probably as deep as I'd want to go right now in terms of elite. Like A plus means you're elite and you've been consistently elite against elite competition. And I don't think we've had a whole lot of that.
Sure. All right. Well, we're about done here. Andy, do you have any final thoughts before we go into Friday? This weekend, it's I think 3 days of games here. Got any final thoughts going into this week?
Thursday, Friday. There's what is it, 3 or 4 games? There's a few games on Thursday.
Yeah.
I hate it, but they are better than Saturday games. So I'll just say that. Other than old school breakfast at McDevitt at 10:30, nothing better ever than being at the Rock Pile for a 10:30 game, especially when it was a hammer game. But there's a couple games that jump out to me. It's for second place in the Keystone, but it's important in the long run. I think we mentioned it earlier. I think the Hershey Cedar Cliff is a very intriguing matchup. And Trinity and West Perry, what's Messiah like? I know he didn't play after that long run against Wyomissing in the first half. He did come back later in the game. He was clearly compromised in some way, shape, or form against the Spartans from that opening salvo that he landed on. But, West Perry, they want to go. And Trinity has no problem having to go either. And I am fascinated to see how that looks. It just feels to me like Trinity's better prepared for this. If they don't let that just stinging 1-point loss, yeah, it was a 1-point loss. Do they let that hang over them, or are they able to move past that? Because if not, West Perry's going to be there waiting to go get them some, because they like to go get them some, and they ain't afraid to take a chance at it.
Just such a amazing thing to see here. It's been, like we talked about last week, it's been a few years since I've been back in the area covering all these teams, but like the thought of a Trinity West Perry like hammer game was like unheard of for so long. And now that it's here, like I can't imagine what it's like in Elliotsburg with that group of fans. I can't imagine what's like at Cobo Field with the Trinity fans. It's like this is when high school football is at its best. I know a lot of it's been commercialized and money has flowed into youth sports over the last 27 years. But like sometimes there is some fun in just the wistfulness of a game like this between two small schools who periodically will get this huge surge, and they got to enjoy it while it lasts because they're not the McDevitts of the world or the Central Dolphins of the world. So
yeah, the hidden gem in that matchup, and it is a great matchup, and you are right. It is a rare one. A lot of green and white, but the second thing is Wyomissing demands 48 minutes for you to compete and play with them, right? Trinity found that out the hard way. It's not a 36-minute game, it's 48 minutes. And it's a lot. Do they beat you up twice? They're a big, physical, strong team that takes a lot out of you just to play with them. Well, I think West Perry's catching Trinity at a good time. That is definitely going to be a factor. That is my hidden key of the game inside the game.
100%. Well, Andy, it's been a pleasure talking with you again this week, as always. We'll have a couple more of these this season still as well. We hope everyone's enjoying us to talk about all things Mid-Penn football and bring on some guests so far. If you got any thoughts, please share it, on the YouTube channel or on social media or anything. But thanks, Andy, for being here today. I'm Jake Adams from the Fourth Down Magazine team, Adam Kolakowski and all those guys. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll see you again next week.
See ya.